welcome to the Geeketeers. We are your hosts, Illisia
and Diggy.
And today we're watching Star Trek Picard. It's literally right there.
This is part of our series, Piloting the Enterprise.
So, episode 1 was recorded, and we did all of the original series. Time just flew by. I haven't finished editing episode 1 yet, so I guess Star Trek Picard is going to be episode 1 now. I decided, I had a word with Diggy earlier, and I pitched the idea.
I've not seen any Next Generation, so I don't have that.
All the films.
All the films that tie to that. I've not seen Patrick Stewart in Star Trek, basically.
He has no pre-existing...
No, I don't have any...
nothing there.
I don't have anything to bend my perspective, so as someone coming into the series, can I enjoy Picard without having the pre-existing knowledge of the Next Generation? Or is it just something that is more for the long-term fans?
Is it for Trekkies, or can a rando enjoy it? We really want to review it from the perspective of a Trekkie and a non-Trekkie, like a completely new person who doesn't have, having not seen any of Patrick Stewart at all, because he's basically Xavier for you, I suppose.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. So, can it stand on its own?
They're going into something where I don't fully know the...
Which is good, that's what we're aiming for.
The context, basically.
That's what we're aiming for, because that's... we want to see if that works, if you can watch it as someone who doesn't have the knowledge or the established opinion or anything. Like, as a fangirl, I'm probably going to just be squealing constantly throughout this episode, let's be honest. But I'm going to be really happy to see him back in that role after however many years. There's going to be reviews everywhere from fans.
Yeah.
So I really feel like getting your review is what's important here. So I'm really excited to see what you think. Obviously I'm excited to see what I think as well, but I really want to see what he thinks.
Going into this straight away, my predictions are that this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense to me. It's going to make sense as Star Trek, it's going to make sense as sci-fi, but it's not going to make much more sense than that.
Okay.
Then when we come around to doing the episode where we watch the pilots for Next Generation...
Maybe you'll have more context for it when you've seen Next Generation.
I'll watch it and then things will click into place with Picard, or I will know about... almost have a grounding in the Next Generation.
There are apparently some prequel episodes as well, but they are not available. Thank you, Amazon. But again, I think that would kind of spoil your... you wouldn't have as fresh an opinion if you'd seen the prequels either, so... Yeah,
that might have tinted things a little bit as well.
Let's do this.
If it wasn't so late, I would be sure to be watching this with a tea, Earl Grey, hot.
I see what you did there. It's a Picard reference.
It is.
It's a Picard reference. Oh, see? He's totally a Trekkie in training, I love it.
Thank you, memes.
Oh, you've learned about Star Trek through memes. You millennial, you.
Let's see how it goes.
Excited?
I am.
I'm so excited.
And we'll get back to you when we've watched it.
Engage.
Let's do this thing.
Engage, damn it. I like my Star Trek reference better.
So, we've seen the first episode of Picard now. What do you think?
I have so many questions. I have so much I want to say, but I want to go to you first. What was it like watching it as someone that doesn't know stuff? Because I really felt like there was a lot in there that would not have made any sense to you at all.
That's the nail on the head.
Oh, darn.
I think it's going to be very, very popular for people who...
For Trekkies.
At the very least, are familiar with the Next Generation, and I'm guessing the films by extent.
Lots of references to the films, yes.
This is a show for the fans. This is for the people who have grown up watching Jean-Luc Picard helm the Enterprise.
Yes.
Like, I wouldn't be able to watch the pilot for the Next Generation and then watch this and understand it.
And then understand it, you wouldn't. I feel like there's a lot that you didn't notice that I did.
That makes sense.
And there was some really funny moments. My personal favourite, I don't think you noticed this in the original series when we watched the original series, but they refer to the second in command as the number one.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Picard names his dog number one. I had a bit of a giggle about that. I thought it was funny. And then Douglas remarked, and he said, "Yep, you've always got to look out for number one." And I had a right giggle about that as well, because that's not what it means.
Honestly, even trying to sort of be very open-minded about it, I felt like they were opening up too many questions.
Yes.
They were just cramming in as many questions to make you think and want to come back to see the answers for them. And honestly, so much of it relies on you knowing about the next generation. It's not something you can pick up easily.
No.
I don't think so.
It's a shame. It doesn't work like, say, Doctor Who, for instance. You know, which is an example of a long-running show that you can just pick up on any episode. That's my biggest problem with this, is there seemed to be a big plot going on, whereas the Star Trek that we know does kind of have a big plot as the season progresses, and, you know, you have, like, the season finale that deals with that big plot or something, but generally, it's every episode stands well on its own, or you might have, like, a two-parter or whatever, but it's... You know, and obviously there is background ongoing plot, but every episode kind of stands well on its own.
It's mostly self-contained.
Yes. Well, not much happened, actually, now I think about it. Did it seem like much happened to you? It's like the show was divided between lots of talking and the girl kicking butt. Like, the only action we had in the show was her doing butt kickery, which happened twice. In retrospect, I feel like it, yes, not much, just talking, just constant talking. I don't know how you feel about that, whether you agree with that or not. What do you think of, like, the ratio between action and talking? You know, I mean, you can drive plot without talking as well. There are other ways to drive plot.
I think, in this case, he was possibly leaning a bit too far towards talking. If it's like that for the rest of this show, I think that would get a bit too boring.
That is going to get very boring very quick.
Not even cerebral, not even clever, just boring.
There was some really bad special effects.
Yeah.
It's so bad. Really bad. I expected better. Never mind.
They've been hit and miss, I'd say.
Hit and miss. Some excellent special effects, and then there was this one bit with someone, like, it was a distance shot and someone was sort of jumping really high, and it was just bad.
It wasn't really high, it was distant, but it was a combination of weird effects, and the angle did not help it.
There, I noticed a couple of other things as well. Like, there was a scene with a city scene, and it looked like it was a doll set. Honestly, I felt like it looked to me as though it was a children's play set. I thought that was quite badly done. So there are definitely some quite bad shots there.
Practical stuff is pretty good.
Some of the makeup.
The makeup work for Data, I actually found it a little bit unsettling.
He was a bit...
The eyes looked right.
Why was it unsettling?
It's just the sort of the skin was almost grainy. The eyes looked right, but then, to be honest, they were just solid yellow contact lenses. Yes. I found Data's skin unsettling in a little bit the same way as I did Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time. Because that has got a bit of a texture and colour to it there as well, so it looks unnatural.
Well, that's kind of the point.
Oh, I know that's the point.
He's Data, he's not natural, that's the point.
But this must be me just being...
Well, it's new, it's new to you.
Ignorant and that, and just assuming that human-like synthetics would look human-like. And that skin is probably a bit too far a stretch.
To put things into context, Data was the first of his kind.
Yeah?
Data was the first synthetic.
Okay.
Well, actually, if you want to be more, his brother was first, but there's a whole other plot there. So at some point in these 20 years, Data was the prototype. His father made him and his two brothers, and at some point they've made more. They've decided this is a thing. We're going to make more now.
To be honest, we haven't really seen much in the way of species. We've got humans, we've got Romulans,
Vulcans.
They were definitely Vulcans.
There was a couple of species that I didn't recognise.
Yeah, we saw
they may have been in
species.
Discovery. I haven't seen any Discovery yet.
But in terms of Next Generation era, they did not exist at the time that was airing.
Indeed.
Right, so that
So there are some new species there, or they seemed new to me. It's possible that they have been in Discovery, or they could be from the animated show. There are some species in the animated series that are not in any of the other shows, and they may have brought some of those back. Who knows?
Entirely possible.
I find their lack of Q disturbing.
I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up at some point.
He probably will. I'll be a bit upset if he doesn't. I would be quite upset if Picard doesn't have Q in it, or at least a Q. Any Q will do. Because Q is both a species and a name.
That specific Q that we're referring to in particular, even I would be able to pick up on, because he plays the exact same character in My Little Pony.
My Little Pony. Yes, he does. The species must be really confusing for you, thinking about it. Like, I mean, for instance, like the two main species other than humans that we had in the show, both have pointy ears. So that's got to be like really confusing.
Very similar pointy ears.
Yes, that has to be really confusing. I was looking at their makeup and everything, and I'm going, even I was struggling to tell the difference between the Vulcans and the Romulans. And I'm an established fan, so oops, little bit. You know, that's tricky. They're, you know, when we saw sort of their face underneath the mask or whatever, I thought it was a Vulcan. You know, it was only sort of at certain
Vulcan
angle.
radical.
It was only sort of then when you see it at certain other angles, it's like, oh no, it's a Romulan. You know, and that's bad. That's not a good sign.
I didn't know if they were related species.
I'm not sure.
But one thing I pointed out on before, when Picard goes into the archives, we see a couple of model ships. They're about yay big, about half a metre long. I jokingly queried, do you think those are the original studio models from the filming of The Next Generation?
I feel like the conversation he had with the journalist was 20 years of history shoved into 3 minutes.
So, right, recap.
It didn't work for me. It worked on an emotional level. There were moments where they were zooming in on his hand, on his
he was
face,
getting very
and stuff like that. You
agitated.
could see he was shaking, and you could see the emotion on his face. It shows, you know, Patrick Stewart's acting skills and the directorial choices there. It was very well done, but in terms of the show, I felt like that entire scene was a cop-out. It was like, we're going to shove as much backstory into this brief scene as possible and hope that you follow it, and then just assume that you followed it, and just, you know, this is how we've set up the whole universe now. This is how we've set up the entire show, is this one scene.
It did have the classic cliche of pushy journalists asking things that were not allowed.
That was very cliched. I really feel like you've got to pay attention to so much in this show, and that's not a good thing. I really feel like shows need to be able to kind of work. You know, there are little details that will improve the viewing, but you don't need to go, hold on a second, that doesn't make any sense, and rewind it.
Yeah, if you're doing that, if you're having to commit your entire attention to it, you can't look to the left for a second, for example. You can't do anything. If you can't do anything like that, it doesn't really stand up. I think I'd probably, if I was to rewatch it, I might pick up on it.
See, the thing is, you shouldn't have to rewatch it. That's what concerns me. Is you shouldn't have to rewatch it. I feel like I need to rewatch that entire journalistic scene to catch up on what's happened. Just do a Star Wars comparison. I was really hoping that Picard would be Star Trek's version of Solo. You know, I've told you that Solo is a great standalone film. There are hints at the franchise, there are lots of references and stuff, but you don't have to have seen any other Star Wars film to enjoy that film, except for that last little twist at the end. But it stands so well on its own, and I have advised people that that haven't seen any Star Wars, watch Solo.
The thing is with Solo, you could change a couple of names. It's no longer a Star Wars film. That's
exactly.
That's not that. Depending on your perspective and the state of the argument, that may or may not be a bad thing. But
I think it works as an entry into the Star Wars universe. This does not work as an entry into the Star Trek universe, unfortunately.
The Mandalorian was also a good first step.
Possibly, yeah.
But that worked better as a shift in the point in time. It works better than Picard does, I'm sorry.
That's very true. Star Wars works better for outsiders than Star Trek does. I feel like Star Trek is...
it's very nuanced.
Yeah, that concerns me. I was hoping for something more accessible in Picard. I really was hoping for something more accessible. I wanted it to be a show that we could sit down and enjoy together. You know, which, if you'd watched the rest of Star Trek, we could probably, but...
I might even have a different perspective.
You may get a different perspective after you've watched the pilot for Next Generation. Well, the 2-part pilot for Next Generation. I'd be curious to watch the trailer to see how much it gives away.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to wait until the end of the series, because I would be worried that it would tell me stuff that I don't want to know yet. There's always that danger, because it's not just a trailer for the pilot, of course, it's for the entire series.
Yeah.
So
I'd be inclined to say, based purely on my understanding of the definition of pilot, that's not a pilot, that's just the first episode.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a pilot. A pilot stands well on its own. A pilot has an end. There was no end to that.
A pilot is specifically there to give an idea of what the greater show is going to be.
I feel like this just went straight to show. It skipped the pilot process.
I think essentially the Next Generation show and films...
That's the pilot.
are the pilot for Picard, essentially. That's the only analogy I can work out.
Which is a shame. I don't know, I think it would have been better if they just treated it like a new show and done a pilot. I feel like that would have worked better, but we'll never know, obviously.
We have the prequel stuff
to
be act as proxy.
It's possible that the prequels set up the show a bit better. It wouldn't bode well if we had to watch the prequel shows for the main show to make more sense.
I was going through worrying how much of this is lost on me with my current circumstances, but it sounds like that I'm not actually missing out on as much as I feared.
You are. I feel like there were a lot of in-jokes and a lot of references and a lot of backstory and stuff like that, but I feel like they did cover a lot of it in the show, though, mostly in that journalistic interview. And sort of flashbacks with Data and stuff like that. But I do worry that they missed out that it's too much of a fanboy show.
Yeah, because we discussed before in other things that a lot of productions based on existing media, they have to strike a balance between either being accessible and having the appropriate amount of depth.
Yes.
And I think this is leaning too far on the depth scale.
It's aiming too much to please existing fans, and there's not enough aimed at the general viewer, someone that is new to the franchise. There will be people that haven't watched any of the films. I've seen almost every episode of Star Trek. I confess I haven't seen the season finale for Next Generation. This is one of those shows where I don't want to watch the end because I don't want it to end. So I haven't actually seen the final 2 episodes.
One could argue that now that we have Picard, your
now
argument...
it's continued. Now that it's continued, it hasn't ended.
It has undermined your argument.
Exactly. So I might be able to watch the end now. Overall, I mean, I feel like... would you want to watch more of it? Having watched that episode, do you want to watch more? That's a very important question I feel like I need to ask you.
Me, individually, right here, right now, I'm afraid I'm going to have to say no.
I was thinking it was going to end up there. This is my concern. Well, we have answered the question. We have successfully answered the question. Can you watch Star Trek Picard if you are not...
with no prior knowledge to the Next Generation.
If you are not a Trekkie.
And if you're cutting it down to a simple yes or no answer... No.
As a resounding no. That's not even a little bit of a yes. That is a resounding no.
I think there is a statement to be made of, yes, you can watch it, but don't expect it to make lots of sense.
There were some funny moments. You definitely smiled quite a few times. There were lots of little jokes that there were jokes that could be understood if you're not a Trekkie. But in terms of
Earl Grey
plot,
decaf.
But in terms of plot, no. Like the jokes could be understood. You know?
Like I said earlier, tea, Earl Grey, hot. Yeah. I know that reference. One of the things that made me laugh is that he's moved to decaf nowadays.
Too old. And him running away from the bad guys. Oh my god.
Well, he's retired now.
He's tired, he's old, it's cute.
I said retired.
That too.
He's retired. He's been retired from Starfleet for 14 years.
They were talking about the differences between different types of old people. We were talking about like an old codger. And someone like that. Talking about several different ways of referring to old people. What's the difference between an old codger and a, like, I can't remember the other examples. Things like that.
That character had a particular scale of how they...
things like that, the conversations he had with the dog, you know, it's like there are certain things that work well, little that you don't need to have seen anything else, and there needed to be more of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not. Like, there are certain scenes that if you watch them on YouTube as a clip or whatever, you can enjoy them on their own, but in terms of plot, no. If you're a Star Trek fan, you might enjoy it, you might not enjoy it. Doesn't particularly work well as a pilot. I think you kind of need to have seen the films to really properly enjoy it. Definitely need to have seen the shows to enjoy it.
Yeah, as someone in my position, it's a minefield.
No. It's a definite no for newbies, unfortunately, which is very disappointing. And I feel like this is the kind of show that you need to watch every single episode for it to make sense. It's not something that you can just watch. You can just enjoy an episode on its own, which is very disappointing. But I am intrigued to see where it goes. The plot is intriguing me. I'll tell you what happens. Because he's not going to watch it. I doubt you'll watch it.
I'll probably sit down and watch it with you, but I'm not going to invest.
Not going to invest in it.
Too much time.
It won't be the end of the world if you miss episodes. You know, you're not going to be like, oh my god, spoilers. Maybe I was expecting too much. I'm disappointed. How many marks would you give it, like, out of 10 or something? Be honest.
I'd say probably 5.
Oh, okay. I was expecting worse.
It was still enjoyable, even with my limited experience of the series. But honestly, I might, if I was feeling malicious, I would knock it. I would knock it down to 4 or even 3. But it wasn't bad enough.
It had its moments.
It had its redeeming qualities, which is why it's got a 5.
I think Patrick Stewart is a lot of that redeeming qualities. Just Patrick Stewart in general.
Yeah. But I don't think it's much more from my position.
me as a Trekkie who hasn't seen the films, I will emphasise that part. I haven't seen the Next Generation films, so I think again I would be able to enjoy it more if I'd seen the films.
You still have limited experience, but more.
Yes.
You've got more than me.
I've got a lot more experience than you, but not enough experience to be able to enjoy Picard as much as it's intended to be. So I would probably give it a 6. So it's not doing great.
First impressions.
That's like 11 out of 20. Quick spoiler talk, or that. Let's see. What the frack was with the Borg cube? Do you know who the Borg are? Because I know I had like a Borg cube moment there, and I feel like
I know of the Borg. They take the best bits of other civilizations for their own gain, and they are a race that can evolve and advance at a very fast rate.
You will be assimilated.
Yes.
You will see the Borg in the first 2 episodes of Next Generation.
I get the impression that there are parallels between the Borg and the Cybermen in terms of their technological superiority and their advancement. But of course, it's only a sort of like a tangential similarity. But I do know of them, and I do know that their main ships are cubes.
Yes.
But that Romulan reclamation site...
What does that even mean?
...was built... it was based in a gutted Borg cube.
Yes. I saw, when we sort of, in the last few minutes, you kind of... sort of catch up with the second model of the girl, and she's on this, you know, she's in this place with the Romulans, and I'm looking at their surroundings, and I'm like, this is looking a bit Borgish. What's up with this? And then in the last few seconds, it pans out. It's slowly panning out, and the more it pans out, the more I'm thinking Borg cube, and then you finally get to the Borg cube, and it's like, it's a Borg cube. Why is it a Borg cube?
Bits of it are missing with energy shields in their place.
So that was interesting. This show is clearly very synth-based. The entire plot is very synth-centric.
I'm getting that impression, yeah.
You know, right from there was something about an uprising on Mars to do with synths. Synths have been banned. Apparently one of the prequel films covers that, like literally you get to be on the planet during the uprising for one of these prequels. So I'd be very interested to see that.
I assumed that it was brought up in one of the films, like the last film or something, but
no, this
it sounds like Mars Burns.
This is entirely new for Picard, and I can tell you the throwaway line now. It was when we first see her and her boyfriend, and when they kill her boyfriend and they come in and they put the bag over her and everything, they said that she hasn't activated yet. But what they do say specifically is this one hasn't activated yet, suggesting that there are others.
Yeah, the way you were describing it as we're watching it made it sound like there were more than 2. It would be like there were dozens.
I was expecting more, because at that point I hadn't guessed that she was Data's daughter, so I was expecting her to be part of a whole batch. I also didn't know that she was a synth at that point. At that point I was thinking she was a sleeper agent of some descript. You know, this is very, very early on in the episode. You know, theories going around in my head. Honestly, my initial theory was sleeper agent for some reason, you know. And then when she saw images of Picard, I was thinking that she'd been activated to go and like kill Picard or something. That's where my head was going, you know. So there was that, but then as the show went on, we found out that she was doing all this stuff that she couldn't do, and the fact that Picard was familiar to her and she was like getting these memories, and the fact that she could trust him without knowing him, I'm like, has that got anything to do with Data, I wonder?
When you describe it like that, that's got more questions in my head, because of this whole trying to sort of transfer memories sort of thing. it was that partly successful in her.
Exactly. That's
something I didn't pick on before.
It was mentioned towards the end of the episode when he went and spoke to that other lady, and they were talking about memory transference and so on and so forth. And it was mentioned in the show how Data had passed away, and how he tried to transfer his essence, his memories, his data banks
into a new host,
into the second brother.
B9, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was mentioned. It was hinted at in the film. It seems that from this pilot, we can tell that they mentioned that it didn't take. Essentially, like he tried to transfer himself, but it didn't. It didn't take.
Not like an incomplete transfer, or just something that hadn't been done before.
I think the general consensus, what I was getting, was that you can take the data out of Data, but there's more to him than just his data.
Yeah.
You can't reconstruct that personality, that soul.
I was just thinking soul.
She's seeing images of Picard even though she's never met him. You know?
Not personally.
Not personally, no, because she's got these... and they were talking about biological memories, because she is a biological synth.
Mm-hmm.
She's not made out of wires.
Mm.
Her base is in... she has DNA. And so and he was talking about, like, because she has a biological base, and so there's literally, and because they've used, like, DNA from Data, I guess, or whatever the Data equivalent of DNA is, you know, there's more data in her than there ever was in either of his, you know, in his twin that he transferred his consciousness to. It doesn't make any sense. It was all the time she's explaining it's not possible to make a synthetic human that, you know, has sentience and bleeds and everything, but obviously, you know, there she is. So how did it happen? Obviously they're going to explain what I hope they'll explain. But I was expecting an army. I wanted an army. But there's only 2 of them. She's not the impossible girl. She's not like Clara. There's only 2 of them. Well, 1 now because she blew up.
I'm wondering if something's going to be recovered of her. I don't think that's the last we've seen of Daj.
I'm hoping not. Between the Trekkie and the newbie, 11 out of 20. Which is more than half. So...
Only because you lifted it above half.
I did. I gave it a 6.
Sitting in the mediocre territory.
Yes, it is very much sitting in the mediocre territory. I don't have high hopes for this show, unfortunately, but we'll see where it goes.
We will. So we'll leave it there because I am...
We're so sleepy.
Getting very tired now.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so that was the pilot for piloting the Enterprise. The other one is like the unaired pilot. And now this is the aired pilot of his... I love that he gets that now. We're now going to go back to the Next Generation for episode, I guess it would be episode 3.
It would be. Do go and watch this because you are going to have different opinions to us. It's just that the opinion in the Geeketeers headquarters is quite low, unfortunately.
11 out of 20.
But you keep repeating that. What's the next score going to be? 7 of 9?
Oh! Oh, my hat, sir, goes off to you, sir. He is totally a Trekkie, he just doesn't know it yet.
So, yeah, we weren't so sure about it, but you'll probably have a different opinion. Thank you for watching the first released episode of Piloting the Enterprise.
We'll see you next time for episode 2, original series.
I've been Diggy.
I've been Illisia.
You geek, therefore you are.
Yes, you do. And so do we.
And we will see you in the next video.
Engage. Is it like 2 fingers and a twist?
Bang!